Drinking buddies, whether or not Buffalo Trace is creating artificial scarcity isn't exactly a new story. It's something people have been talking about for a while. But I thought of something that I haven't heard anyone else point out yet. Let's go.
I'm your drinking buddy.
All right, drinking buddies, so I poured a little Eagle Rare here so we could talk about Buffalo Trace. Now first, before we begin anything when it comes to Buffalo Trace, I have to commend them for the fact that they make wonderful whiskey, and they do so at a very low price. Now I know a lot of stores will mark up their whiskey crazy, but that is not their fault. They make great whiskey, and other people take advantage of that. This here Eagle Rare should be about $30 to $40. If somebody wants to charge $100 for that, that's their problem, not Buffalo Trace's problem, if you understand what I'm meaning. Now, who else is selling, excellent 10-year bourbon for $30? The list is small. Maybe you might be able to find a Bullet 10-year around that price point, maybe Russell's 10, but other than that, you're just not going to find it. Weller 12 is a $40 product. The only other 12-year wheater that's out there was Maker's Cellar Aged, which was a very, very small run, and it was $200. Was it $200? Yeah, it was $200, and I think the new one is going to be $250. So, anyway, so they get a lot of credit for making very cheap whiskey that is excellent, but it's really hard to find. That's the big but. And when you do find it, often the store has marked it up dramatically. Is Buffalo Trace contributing to this? Well, first of all, I would say we are to blame a lot. There are so many of us out there in the whiskey community that hoard these bottles. They see the Eagle Rare on the shelf, they buy a case. They see, Stag on the shelf with no limit, they're going to clear out the whole shelf. We're part of the problem there because, if we were just buying one of it and drinking it until it's gone and then going to the store and buying another one, realistically, there'd probably be a lot more of it on the shelves. But there's a lot of it in the hands of flippers. There's a lot of it in the hands of people who, want extra cases in backup and perpetual. And that's fine. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying that that's one of the reasons that there is scarcity in the Buffalo Trace family. Another theory out there is that distributors are a big part of the problem. And, well, we know that Buffalo Trace just changed distributors this past year. From, in my area it was RNDC before, and now it's Breakthrough. And that one doesn't work for this particular theory. Since Breakthrough just took it over, there is no way they could be sitting on bottles for years because they just took it over. And we have to get to my point that I have not heard anyone else talking about. And that is the fact that when bottles arrive at a store, they are often from years ago. Now, I'll give you a great example, Stag. So I am sure you saw my recent video where I talked about how there's been some insane drops at Walmart recently. There was Stag 18, Stag 20, Stag from 2022. So Stag from 2021, 2022, and 2023 hitting stores now. Now, there's a counterpoint to that thought is, have you ever walked into a store and been like, oh, hey, we just got in today some Elijah Craig from 2 years ago, some Elijah Craig Barrel Proof from 2 years ago? No, I don't think that's something that happens. Now, you might see an older batch sitting on a shelf, but that's probably in a store where they sit on shelves. Maybe they're charging a little more than they should, and it's been sitting on the shelf for a couple of years. It's got some dust on it. I'm saying, have you ever walked into a store and they received really old Elijah Craig that day? Or Booker's, maybe. Maybe you walk into a store and they're like, yep, we got our delivery. It's a Booker's from 2022. This is just not something that happens from my experience. Those, once they're sold, they're gone. So why is Stag different? Stag is different. I was still getting Stag batch 15 showing up in Arizona till last year. And it couldn't have been the distributor holding on to it because, once again, we established it's a new distributor. So batch Stag 18, if it did indeed come out in 2021, why would Breakthrough have it? The only explanation is that Buffalo Trace held on to cases and cases and cases of Stag batch 18 so they could release it at a later date. That is creating artificial scarcity if I have ever heard of it. If I've ever seen anything, that is absolutely the textbook definition. You have it and you're not selling it. They are guilty of this. I am 100% convinced. Now, When I was researching this video, I went to a number of places, Reddit, many places to see what people are saying about this. And one of my favorite comments I encountered was, why don't other people just explore all the other great American whiskeys instead of concocting Buffalo Trace conspiracies? To that I would say, ¿por qué no los dos? We can have both. We can have our Buffalo Trace tinfoil hat conspiracies. We can also drink other whiskey. I have 400 bottles of whiskey, approximately. I don't know, I haven't counted. Probably 200 at least. We'll say 250. I have approximately 250 bottles of whiskey, and like 25 of those are Buffalo Trace. I drink plenty of other whiskey. I spend a lot of time talking about other whiskey, but it's also fun to talk about Buffalo Trace. And it's also fun to talk about Buffalo Trace conspiracies, because we got to figure out why. The main thing is, Buffalo Trace is so in demand, they don't really need to artificially, make their product artificially scarce. They don't need to do this. So why are they doing it with Stag? And it's a little bit disheartening when it's a distillery that I love, that does everything so right, but they're doing this one thing that is a little bit shady. So here's what I would like you guys to do. Let me know down in the comments what you think about all of this. Do you think that Buffalo Trace is guilty of this? Have you ever walked into a store, and like I said, I'm not talking about a Dusty that's been sitting there for 2 years. I'm talking about, have you ever walked into a store and they're like, yeah, we got a delivery today. It's a Stag, or it's a, sorry, not Stag. It's a Booker's or an Elijah Craig Barrel Proof from 2 years ago. Has that ever happened to you? Because maybe I'm wrong about this, but I don't think that's something that ever happens. Meanwhile, that happens all the time with Stag. Stags from a couple years ago show up. I've seen the laser etched bottles of, Weller 12, and, because you can tell by looking at your bottle when it came from. You get a bottle from a couple of years ago and it happens. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate all of you guys. Let me know down in the comments what you think about all this, and be sure to like the video before you leave, because I couldn't do this without you, and liking the video tells the algorithm that you like what I'm doing. Cheers, buddies. Thanks for watching.
I'm your drinking buddy.